Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our 2024 budget meeting for our capital. I'd like to offer regrets today from Councillor Paul Zimmerman, Councillor Ron Elliott, and Councillor Jeff Gunson. They have very important things going on, and they can't be here, but they've all read the budget, and they have no questions. I've talked to all three of them. So, again, I'd like to get started. If there's any disclosure of pecuniary interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, please disclose that. Hearing none, resolution moved by Deputy Mayor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Potnovitz, that the Town of Minto Council convene into Committee of the Whole and conduct budget deliberations. All in favor? That's carried. I'd just like to, again, welcome everyone, welcome our staff. It's great to see you all here, and it's we're into some lean years, and I know it's a lean budget. We're doing what we can do, unless we get a windfall or something from our upper tier and our province and our federal people. We'll likely have a few lean years. So I think we should get started. I'm going to ask our Co-CAO, Mark Potter, to introduce the budget. Thank you.
Good afternoon. It is my pleasure to kick off day 2 of the 2024 budget deliberations. Today's focus will be on the 2024 capital budget request. A budget open house is scheduled for December 5th, with the final budget bylaw coming before Council on December 19th. The Town of Minto has made significant investments in its annual capital program. Through the use of reserves, strategic borrowing, and funding from other levels of government, the town strives to keep its assets in a state of good repair. Unfortunately, the annual capital requests from departments exceeds the funding available, resulting in some projects being deferred to future years. There is a balance between maintaining healthy reserves and funding of asset repair and replacement. The town relies on an annual funding in the form of federal gas tax and the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund to fund a large portion of the annual capital program. However, a funding gap still exists. This problem is not unique to Minto, and staff will continue to explore all grant opportunities available to help mitigate the increasing capital project backlog. Minto has some very large projects on the horizon, and therefore staff is not recommending any new borrowing for a few years. The 2024 capital budget before Council today invests in various key areas of the community, building a strong foundation for the future. I will now turn things over to Treasurer Duff.
Great. Thanks, Mark. And as we say, and as the mayor noted in his introduction, the maintenance and the investment in new infrastructure is unfortunately beyond our financial resources. And I'm sure everyone heard the last couple of days the FCM backed up this position, saying it's great to have houses, but you need the roads and the services to go with them. And that's our responsibility, but it's really hard to meet with the finances we have available. So anyway, we will persevere. Just hit off the one update from the operating discussion is Deputy Mayor Anderson had wondered about if it was possible to come up with an estimate of full-time equivalents for our part-time staff. So we worked with Lori in payroll, and we added it up kind of by responsibility, like pools and museums and snow removal and that. So we came up with 73 unique employees and a total of 19,785 hours. Some of them worked like a couple of hours, and some of them worked almost hundreds of hours. And once we put it all together and divide the hours by the employees and that, we came up with a FTE, full-time equivalent, of 9.51. And they're all the ones included in our part-time, seasonal, casual, and everything like that. So hopefully that'll be informative. Sure. And then again, it's our asset management plan, which I'm going to be sick of hearing, but it's always kind of a good benchmark as to what we're doing. As part of the information gathered for the annual Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund this past summer, we had to put together current replacement values for core assets, which is basically our few gentlemen to the left there. It's roads, stormwater, water, wastewater, and bridges. And that figure alone, to replace all those assets, is estimated at $415 million. So we are dealing with large dollars for sure. And our whole capital budget this year is 3.7. So you can see that's not even 1%. And the 3.7 covers everything, fire, community services, admin. And this is just for our core assets. So it's a big task. Where we've been, we're almost at the end of 23. And we have done quite a few medium-sized projects, I would say. In admin, our primary focus is upgrading our computer hardware, software, again, a lot of it for security purposes. The fire department's big thing has been the upgrading and standardization of their SCBA equipment, going to carry into the next year. A bit more in the resiliency, redundancy. We put in all the generators at our 3 water towers, and that's been a big project that Todd and other staff have shepherded through. Done some paving all throughout Minto where we can. Much work on White's Road, as we all know after following the detours. But that's a very important artery in our community. Sipe Lane, which again was talked about for many years, but Mike's got that project pretty much completed. SCADA, which is basically the alarm system for water, wastewater, and a lot of it is electronic and computer equipment. Major upgrades done this year. We're well on the way to the well exploration in Harrison and Palmerston, getting some test results and looking at various sites. Community services, again, it's finishing off the major renovation at the Palmerston Arena and other renovations as we can, and a bit of preventive maintenance on the railway bridge in Palmerston. So we're, again, as Mark mentioned, we're looking at 3.7 million spread out by the departments, as you can see. The bulk, again, is roads, water, wastewater, because it's the big ticket items. And we'll get into more detail here. Where is it coming from? Basically some DCs of about 344,000, tax base, which are basically the non-water, non-obligatory reserves, 509,000, water, wastewater reserves for $1,069,500, and subsidies and grants, and that list is relatively short. Again, it's the OSHA-IF and the gas tax when we're using up the remaining of some COVID funding for organization. There's a specific breakdown of these grants. So gas tax, again, it's been relatively flat for the last about 4 or 5 years now. And we're already committed, we get roughly 263,000 or so. We're committed 153,000 of that is for debt servicing for projects that we've done quite a few years ago now. And that only leaves us, a little over 85,000 we can carry forward. And we always should be sure that we're spending what we get, and that's not usually an issue. We can spend it many times over, I'm afraid. So we have 85,000 there and 1,386,800. I was hoping we would have had our actual 24 allocation, but we don't, so it's based on our best guess. and cleaning up the remainder of the municipal modernization, 218.5, and safe restart of 89.5. And here's our the relatively healthy position of reserves and debt. And you can see we pay down roughly 1.2 million every year in principal payments on our outstanding debt. So that's important to keep in mind as we look forward. Our reserves are coming down a bit, not too bad, pretty much all that we mentioned. We're putting in about 2.2 million and taking out about 4.3, some for operating debt servicing and that, mostly for paying the capital as it goes out. And at the end of the year, we still should be at over 13 million in reserves. So our highlights, and if any department head wants to zip in, you're more than able to. Admin, we have a bit more hardware. There's always going to be some to do. We're kind of maybe beginning a transition away from largely desktops to more mobile laptops too. Consulting, so we've got our July 1st, 24 asset management plan. We're taking advantage of all the free training we can get, but I know we're going to need the consultants, and that's on levels of service, more current levels of service. ARO, which means asset retirement obligations. So these are assets that we own that we know when it's the end of their life, we're going to have to rehabilitate or incur some costs. Fortunately, many years ago, we uploaded probably the biggest that we have around here, which is landfill sites. But we still may have buildings with asbestos or ammonia and things like that. So it's a matter of looking at what do we have and what do we think it would cost to retire them. And the DC bylaw, again, it seems like we just did it, but they'll be coming up soon. And we've also chatted with Todd and Mike Doucette and Mark Robertson, and we'll have to start thinking about the water and wastewater because they all have licenses and that, and it's usually a 6 to 12 month process. So most of the work may be done in 25, but we want to get started in 24. Community services, again, it's repairing existing facilities. Nothing new on the go, but keeping what we have in good repair. Some playground upgrades. Again, all these things, it seems like we just did them, but that was a few years ago, so they need to be maintained and kept up to standard. And the big expenditure is the ice resurfacer, which we still have the plan where we rotate them and replace one every 3 or 4 years. Economic development, again, we're hopefully out of the industrial park servicing business, but we still want to keep our downtowns nice, get our streetscapes, kind of reinvigorate our public art. We've added a lot in the last few years. It's more keeping what we have. For fire, as we mentioned, there's the continual upgrades on the SCBA equipment, which was a bit more expensive than we thought it was going to be. So we'll be completing that project, and there's continually trying to make sure our firefighters are well equipped and personal protection equipment. And the main project we have that affects roads, water, wastewater is reconstructing and improving Derby Street, partly development driven, partly replacing what we have. Municipal drain repairs, again, there's more work to be done there. Sidewalks, do what we can. I know it's a bit like the paving. We could do more if we had the money, but as you know, as we replace the 4-foot or the overgrown sidewalks, we replace them with the 5-foot standard, and that seems to be good for accessibility. GPS and cameras, again, more integration, upgrading the equipment. And that kind of covers it. you notice we didn't include maps this year because not too many locations to talk about this year, so here we are. Again, wastewater, the wastewater component on Derby Street. We have an allocation in for both sewer and water main replacements, and then the departments will decide which is the highest priority. Been doing a lot of work on I&I and assimilative capacity, which is basically looking at the condition of the plants and how's the affluent and what's our capacity in view of all the growth projects and that. And again, SCADA, which is the alarm system monitoring. For water, basically a mirror of wastewater except for the future well sites. And we know we need to do that if we're going to meet the development projects that are on the books that we know about, and SCADA as well. So then on slide 14, we have a recap by department. 2024, I think we have well in hand. Going forward, as we know, it's going to be more difficult. We have our 3 big projects, redevelopment of Palmerston downtown and wells in Hairston and Palmerston. And those are going to be the challenges. And we hope there's infrastructure funding, but we are whittling down the debt best we can, and we'll be able to borrow, hopefully when interest rates have completed this cycle. They seem to be on hold for the next few months, and hopefully they'll be on the way down. But gosh, it's only 4 years, and we've got $31 million, and that's going to be quite an issue to solve. So it's a really fast run through of the year, but happy to take questions, and everyone here is too.
Any questions for our treasurer? Deputy Mayor Anderson?
Just a question in administration. I know it's a large figure for 2024 and then drops to almost a third, not quite a third for the subsequent years. Are we assuming once we have those computer upgrades and everything done, we'll be good? For a little
Yeah,
while?
yes, for a little while. So the biggest component we've been spending on is firewalls, and basically that's building both software procedures and actual machines that kind of keep out the bad guys. And you know, I'm home for lunch for 20 minutes. I get a call from the fraud department, you know, so it's like, and that's just like, that's real basic, but we're just like inundated
Yes.
by attacks and that. And so we're trying to build the defenses. And again, it's not just at the office here. I think it's about really, but I know Matt's been working at the arenas, and, you know, we got our fire halls, and we've got other water, wastewater equipment. So it's just trying to build resiliency. But yes, hopefully once that's done, at least we're good for, say, 5 years or whatever the life cycle of that is. So, and computers, again, this trend that's been there, the hardware is getting cheaper, but the software and the licenses is getting more expensive. So,
Okay, thank you.
that's what
I assumed that was it, but I just thought I'd clarify.
no, good.
Councillor Podovitz?
Through you, Mayor Sheridan. Just on the forecast there, I noticed the building and planning had no capital for 2024. I just wonder if the 40,000 for the.
So that's for vehicle replacements. I think we're on a 7-year cycle for replacing the building department vehicles, so it's kind of hitting the time frame. I am going to be looking at that closer to the end of next year. If the vehicles are still in good shape, then we'll just kind of push that off for future years.
How many vehicles do you have?
Have 3.
You have 3?
Yep.
Okay. Oh, do we need 3?
That's the other thing I'm trying to assess.
Councillor Dirksen, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. I had a question about the Derby Street project next year. Is that the entire street?
That's essentially from Toronto Street to York.
Oh, okay. Just
The-
that section.
Yeah, the public school block.
Yeah.
Next one over. Yeah.
Yes, okay. And also for Public Works, the prep for Palmerston's Main Street, I saw 100,000 in there. I'm just trying to have up, but I don't have a page number written down. What kinds of things do you need to do this far ahead? Just to give us an idea of what the 100,000 is for.
All the behind the scenes engineering, the soil testing, sampling, geotech, yeah, all the survey work. If there's any sort of minor repairs that we can have completed prior to, then we'll get that stuff sort of looked after and hopefully speed up the project as well when that time comes, but it'd be very minor.
So it isn't really anything anybody can see, other than people maybe running around in
Yeah.
blaze orange, but, yeah, okay.
Also, just on that, through you, Mayor Turton, that we've been meeting with the engineers and all of us quite often. I think what you're going to see next year, though, is also the next year, 2025, there'll be a public meeting with the design of the Main Street. So that's another thing that they're working towards. But there's also many aspects of that, as Mike said, there's where do we put pedestrian crossovers with the high school and the downtown? Do we put stoplights downtown? Do we put roundabouts in at the edge of town to slow traffic and to get traffic flowing? This is going to be a very significant project because there's all those aspects too that have never been, that are not there now, that they're doing studies and surveys and everything to try and justify which way we need to go. Turning lanes is another thing into the subdivision. All of that stuff's being studied now that we can actually bring it to council to let you see and also do public meetings so that the residents can weigh in and have a look at the project as well. So that's just expanding on their answers. That's a lot what's going into this. That's going to be coming out soon. So people will be able to eventually see a drawing of what it is. And we haven't even started to talk about streetscapes and it's going to be in there. We're going to have to do all that too, and that's going to be coming to the public meeting in that as well. So people will get to see that eventually.
Yeah, no doubt. Okay, perfect. And can I ask one more?
Yes, go ahead.
I was also wondering about the trailer for water and wastewater to be proposed to be replaced in 2025. There's 150,000 in each budget, so it's $300,000 to replace that. But that's different than what Public Works uses, is it? I was just confused by the trailer. I just didn't know what was.
Yes, that's the vac trailer that the three departments share currently.
Okay.
We're just looking at, how much we use the vac trailer, how effective it is, and if it would make sense to convert that to that truck.
Okay, super. That's all I had that wasn't answered. Thank you.
Thank you. So the downtown Palmerston County's putting up X number of dollars. How much say? Do they come to our meetings when we have, or do they lead our meetings? Basically, we don't have a meeting without them. They're there.
That's correct. They've been at a couple of the meetings. Right now, it's mostly in the engineering phase, and the county is also using Triton Engineering for the project. So we're both using the same engineer. So most of it's in the engineer's purview right now. We have met with the county twice, I believe, to discuss that because they are a huge component of the project. So yes, they are in the same loop, and I know the engineer is going to them and to us the same, like back and forth with them. So they will be part of the meetings as well, public meetings.
So that's abnormal in a big project like this for the county to have an engineer and us have a different engineer. Is that?
That's a good question. I think most of the time it's the same engineer that, in our experience, it's been the same engineer that's been on it. But this project in particular takes a lot of engineering. It's going to take a lot of engineering to make it come to fruition.
And a lot of money.
A lot of money, yes. That's why we just wouldn't pass that slide fast. You say the figure really
Say it
fast, it's
fast.
not that bad.
So we're into the engineering, so it's not a huge amount of dollars, but it's important, to do things right and to get everybody's input. couple of years from now. That's when the big dollar hits. Gord, the total debt excludes the North Wellington Healthcare loan. Can you explain how that works,
Yes.
please?
And so it's basically a flow through. So they pay 50,000 principal a year plus the interest. And as the interest payments come due semi-annually, they flow the money to us. So again, you're probably one of the ones that was on here when we shouldn't, all being well, be on the hook for anything, but if somehow North Wellington Healthcare disappeared, the debt would still be ours that we would do it. And it does impinge a little bit on our annual debt repayment limit because it is recorded on the books of the town of Minto as debt. We also have an equivalent note receivable from the hospital, so it's offset. And the balance at the end of the year, so we started at 1.5 million. We're now at 1.2. Remember, it's over 30 years, and you can't pay it off early or anything. So it is an obligation of the town, but it's not a cash flow drain to the town. And that's what we went in on. So it's kind of unique.
And the second part, I'm sure that the healthcare is not going away.
Nope. I don't think
Hopefully
so.
the hospital does not go away either. The tile drain loans. Can you give us an idea of what we're talking, what magnitude of?
So tile drains, well, we're talking about that earlier. They were $81,000 at the end
81.
of 22. So again, and you see them come to council with the application and the final approval. So again, we're a total flow through there. Only our obligation is to the province, Ministry of Agriculture. So again, if somehow all the farmers left and their properties were worthless, the town would have to pay that back. Very unlikely circumstance. But what happens is the farmer applies for the loan, get the proceeds, province gives it to us, hand it to the farmer, and we recover through basically a charge on their annual taxes. And it goes through depending on the anniversary of the loan too. So again, one of those things where we have an obligation and we have a receivable from the landowners too. So we're the flow through on that one.
Thank you. Last question, Derby Street. So we're working on Derby from up to Toronto. When the contractor gets going on his development, Clare Ridge, I'm not sure exactly what the name of it is now, the street from Toronto into the development. So the question, so presently there's really nothing in that street. And I know that we're kind of counting on some of the other lots in there possibly sharing the debt load on that. So are we the town of Minto? So how's that work? Go ahead.
That section of Derby Street's all with the development. It has no bearing on
Good.
our proposed project.
Thank you. I just wanted clarification on that. So, Ed, any more questions? No? Okay. So, where do we go now?
We have an open house a week from today.
Okay.
At 5 o'clock, 5 till 6. Take any comments from general public or if you counselors or staff or that think of something. And then our aim is to bring forth the budget bylaw on December 19th for approval.
Seems that this process has been easy this year.
On our half, right?
Yeah.
We like to make sure it's easy for council.
We try.
That was my point. You know, so on behalf of council, again, we'd like to thank you folks for coming to the table. Question of need here and likely not wants. And I know that the funding gap, I mean, we talk about it all the time and grants, Gord, and whoever's helping you with the grants, we seem to get our share. So thank you for that. Keeping our buildings in good repair is extremely important, and some of these things, we just need to do them. So if there's nothing else, I have a motion. Resolution moved by Councillor Dirksen, seconded by Councillor Potnovich, that the Committee of the Whole convened into regular council. All in favor of that motion? We have no bylaws. Resolution moved by Deputy Mayor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Dirksen, that the council adjourn to meet again at the call of the mayor. All in favor of that motion? Thank you very much.